Hello students. Now in the part 2 of this lecture on levy and collection of CGST and SGST and reverse charge mechanism, we had covered this some examples of supplies of services under reverse charge mechanism. So this is what is covered in section 9.3. Now we are to move to section 9.4, supplies by unregistered persons. So how to deal with that? A bit repetition is over here, so I'll be skipping it. So we have covered it in the earlier part of this chapter under section 9.3 and 9.4. So that has been dealt in detail earlier. Now this is a simple self-explanatory example of this. Suppose Shalu is an unregistered person, who is a supplier in Haryana, and he sends the goods to Raju, who is a registered person, that is the recipient in Haryana. Now, in this case, identify the following elements. What is the nature of supply? It is intrastate. It is within Haryana. What is the nature of levy? Nature of taxes to be levied. So the tax levied here will be reverse charge since the supplier is an unregistered person. So the person who is receiving the goods has to pay tax to the government. Now coming to the last part of this topic, that is section 9.5, how to deal with the recovery of CGST and SGST in case of supply of taxable services by electronic. It can be supply of services, it can be supply of goods. So example of electronic commerce operators are websites like companies like Flipkart and Amazon. So they sell goods to the consumers on their electronic portal. So basically their portal acts as a platform of selling goods. Anybody can sell goods. You and me can also sell goods on Amazon and Flipkart. The only thing is that they charge a commission. So these portals, these companies, why they are called ECOs, they charge commission. So right here, I would like to again tell you that if let's say example is given down below of any company selling goods on its own website is not a electronic commerce operator. So any company, let's say Tanishq sells jewelries on its own websites, an automobile company may sell cars, stationery company may sell stationery, any ABCD. So that is not considered a e-commerce operator. So the important points to be taken care over here is that in case of ECO, that is e-commerce operator for short, turnover does not matter. So whether you have a sale of 10 lakhs, 20 lakhs or 1 lakhs or 2 lakhs, all e-commerce operators are mandatorily required to register under GST. Tax shall be paid by them on certain specified categories by the government in the notifications. And if the e-commerce operator does not have an establishment in a state, for example, let's say establishment means office. Let's say Amazon does not have a proper formal office, registered office in Punjab or Haryana. That does not matter. If they supply goods to a particular state, they'll have to pay SGST in the state, and that tax they will have to hire a person who is representing the e-commerce operator. He'll be liable to pay the tax. Next point is where the consideration has been collected by the e-commerce operator. Consideration, that is money, has been collected. They shall collect tax TCS at the rate of 2%. So 1% CGST, 1% on net value of taxable supplies. So whatever thing that is supplied through their website is taxable. So TCS they'll have to collect and submit it to the government, and they need to file return on this in their online filing process in the form called GSTR 8 by the 10th of every month. So that is important. So for example here is given of Flipkart. So first example, first line says that when they are acting as an e-commerce operator, and the second line says that second example is when Flipkart sells its own goods, right? The goods whose inventory is owned by Flipkart itself, then that is not considered as an e-commerce operator. So only goods which are sold by other parties on Flipkart's websites, TCS has to be deducted on that. Right? So mostly these companies nowadays, Amazon and Flipkart, in order to save that 2%, so they use a smart way. Most of the goods, majority of the goods, they are selling by themselves also. So there were a number of news also in papers that how Amazon and other companies are trying to avoid tax, right? So that issue is the government is also taking. Are they now? This is the news. Will urge FM to probe alleged avoidance of GST by Amazon. So they are using certain legal loopholes to avoid paying GST. So this news was already there. So we will not go into detail of this. Uh, that was just for reference. Getting back. So now, so we talked about this thing. Flipkart, two examples. Flipkart selling somebody other's products and Flipkart selling its own products. Same applies to Amazon. So you can get into the news. You want to get into the detail of that. Now, second example is Tanishq website or any company which sells products through its own website. That will not come into the category of e-commerce operator. Now, the next thing is the timing for such collection and deduction. What is the timing for deduction of TCS? Point number one, whenever such company credits any amount to the account of the actual supplier, the customers, sorry, and credits to the suppliers. So at that time, TCS is deducted. Second point is also similar at the time of payment of any amount in cash to these third-party suppliers, right? The next point is TCS, which is deposited by the operator to the government, will be reflected in the cash ledger of the actual registered supplier. So whoever is supplying goods to Flipkart or Amazon, TCS, right? So this TCS, which is deposited by them, it will be reflected in their GST account that this so and so supplier has submitted so and so TCS to the government, and this amount, the same, can be used at any time at the discharge of the tax liability. In fact, they can use this amount that is reflected in their cash ledger for discharging other tax liability. Now, next point is services. Now, this was about goods. Now, next we come to services on which tax is payable by e-commerce operators. Number one is services by way of transportation of passengers. A very common example is Ola taxi and Uber taxi services, which are common in bigger cities and metros. Second point is services by way of providing accommodation in hotels. So online services. Examples of these websites are we know MakeMyTrip.com, Expedia, etc., etc. So they are also providing services. So they also provide tax to the government through this. And third is there are many online services. Some of you might have heard of a app called Urban Clap. Again, very popular in bigger cities. If you need somebody to repair your home, you need a carpenter, you need a plumber, you need somebody for deep cleaning your bathroom or tiles, then they provide you services of these skilled people, and they charge service tax on that, and the details, and appropriately they have to pay GST to the government, right? Next is just the legal definitions of radio taxi. And what is a radio taxi? What is a GPS based taxi system? Ola and Uber worked on GPS based systems. And what is a maxi cab or a motorcycle cab? That definition is given in the Motor Vehicle Act. We will not go into the details of that. So basically, the summary is 9.5 section says that electronic commerce operators are providing goods to people and they need to pay TCS, uh, tax. Tax collected at source, which is 1% plus 1%. And secondly, there are services which are provided through the internet. Again, those all those services which are chargeable to GST, those firms are required to pay the desired amount to the government, to the GST department, through their uh, online GST account. Now, Now, the summary of this: persons liable to pay GST for services when supplied through e-commerce operators. Point number one is if the ECO is located in taxable territory, which is normally the case. Exceptions are very rare. Earlier, Jammu and Kashmir was the exception, but now Jammu and Kashmir is also comes under all the rules and regulations which are applicable to India are applicable to J&K. So person who is liable to pay the tax is the e-commerce operator. And second point, if the ECO does not have a physical presence in the taxable territory, like I say, if they don't have a office in any of the states, then they have to appoint a person who represents the ECO. responsible for paying tax. And third point, if the issue has neither a physical presence nor has any representative, then they can hire a person. For example, they can hire a CA to pay tax. Now, coming to the conclusion and summary of this entire thing. So, who are the persons liable to pay tax under reverse charge mechanism? We have seen section 9.3, and in that it is written that there are certain notified supplies. Notification is given by the government, and for those supplies that you have to pay reverse charge. Section 9.4 says that supplies by a unregistered person to a registered person, so the registered person has to pay reverse charge. And section 9.5 says that supply of taxable services by electronic commerce operators. So these companies are also required to pay the reverse charge. This is how we come to the end of the uh, this topic, and have a look at the questions. These are basically based on straight questions based on the topics that we have covered in this chapter, right? So this thing you can skip over in this chapter. Write a short note on IGST. IGST will cover later on, right? So seventh short question you can skip, and seventh long question you can skip, right? And the topic we have covered just now, you can just see who is an electronic commerce operator. Now, question sixth one, is an ECO liable to pay tax under GST? So that's the topic we have just covered till now. So that's all for this topic, and now we will start in the next video. We are going to start with the composition scheme. That's all for this one. Thank you.